Hello and welcome to the Clark-Smith podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by René Wiertz, the founder and CEO of Fundracer, a VC firm investing into the mobility and e-mobility space. But René, you've had quite an interesting career from corporate life with Philips to buying 3T from parts into the bicycle world to actually building full bikes as well. So really interesting career. But for me, I always think that some of the early context, some of those early years helped to shape your career and I suppose push you down this route. So what was it in your early life that helped drive this entrepreneurial spirit?
I think in the end, you can say that if you're a little bit older in the or further on in your life, but then you realize that the life is one big discovery, what you actually really like to do, what you're good at. But it's as you say, it starts with some fundamentals that you have with you or that you learn from a young age that then they are actually thinking things that are coming back in your the rest of your life. So I remember that I liked to do many sports when I was young, but I was not a professional in anything. But I like to play tennis, I like to play football, I like to play biking, I like to do many different things. Um, which is, in hindsight, something that as an entrepreneur, you need to be able to do many things. And I also always was looking for traveling and freedom. When I was very young, I always thought, oh, one day I'm going to work on the airport because I was just so excited to see all those planes leaving somewhere to, a new destination, like exploring the world. That was something that I was really looking forward to. So the freedom to move around and to explore new territory is
Mm,
another thing that I really had, in my DNA. That is, something that came back very strongly in, building a company. It's a lot
yeah.
about exploring new territory and, go to the unknown rather than explore the known path.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's I had this desire to explore and to be free and not fitting with my study choice was the same thing. I had friends that were very focused on I want to become a mathematician or I want to become you know, an analyst in a bank. And I don't think I have ever had very clear
Mm,
what kind of job I wanted. I just wanted to, I enjoyed exploring, enjoyed building, but I wasn't really after a certain job. So when I did my study, I was pretty, I did my study, but could also be something else. Or I was not entirely 100% convinced that was the perfect way to go. Actually, I was trained to work in a bank, which is after doing an internship in a bank, I realized this is not a place for me to work. So, I did that for 6 months and decided that this is a great experience not to learn where I don't want to proceed my career. So, I think that it is in hindsight easier to make those dots, of course,
yeah.
but now it's very clear to me that why I ended up where I ended up.
You
And
still, I mean, you talk about freedom and wanting to travel, but you still ended up in that corporate environment of Philips, and corporate is much more restrictive, siloed, almost narrow focus. How did that reconcile with that kind of desire to be free?
Yeah, because at that time, everyone was aspiring to work for, the big companies, the Shells, the Philips, the big Goldman Sachs banking. So I think, when you're young, again, I wasn't 100% clear where I wanted to have my career. So I guess I followed that path and I looked for the big company because that was where everyone was going. There weren't a lot of startups, and no one was going to work for a startup
Mm,
after graduation. So I looked for the company where the big company, which could have fitted in the in how things were done at that time, but then still where I had the biggest opportunity to actually go and work abroad and to work in different positions. So when I moved to Philips, I started there. I have had different positions. That's where I exactly learned where I'm good at, where I'm bad at, and where I want to proceed after. So that's why also I left that big company again. But the reason why I started one was really driven by the fact that that's where you start your career. And I must also say that the big companies were very active in in recruiting at
Mm.
universities at that time, and there were no startups doing that at all. And I think there were just less startups at that time.
Yeah. And then, so with Philips, you moved through different functions, finance, and ended up in that M&A side of things. I know we've talked about this before. You went and did a executive MBA, which helped you to see outside of those four walls, and I suppose pushed or started you down the path of thinking, well, maybe now's the time to go and do something or own a business. So talk me through that kind of thought process and how that happened.
Well, that was so in Philips. I had indeed, if you work in a big company, you're hired in a management development project or program, so you change every 2 3 years. So I started actually as a currency trader. So I
Mm.
was buying and selling was pre-euro, buying and selling currencies because big companies they receive money in dollars, but then they need to pay salaries in Dutch guilders at that time. So you need to convert that. So I did that for a year and a half. Was a way to get to learn what it takes to work every day. That is from a student life to having actually a real job. That is also in a part of your learning curve. But then my second job, I joined Marantz Europe. Marantz is a high-end audio brand.
Mm.
It was originally created in Japan, and Philips was the majority owner of that company. So it was part of the career development within Philips. But in Philips, you had people working, very professional people, but they were very not very passionate about the products they were selling, whether it was semiconductors or light bulbs or fridges. They were very professional, but they had very little emotional attachment to the product. But Marantz was a high-end audio brand, and people in Marantz were, although their payslip said Philips, they were not working for Philips. They were
Mm.
working for Marantz, and they were a very small, tightly knit group of people that were passionate about music. And an example of that is when a new CD player arrived, a new model from Japan, sample arrived. Typically, in other companies, it's the product manager that will then unpack the box and listen to it and then tell the sales guy, yes, you can move on and selling this stuff. In Morans, when the dead box arrived, everyone, the whole office dropped all their work. We moved to the listening room. We had a dedicated listening room and we listened there for half an hour to this new piece of art. And then the product manager was explaining, do you hear the difference between the previous version and this one? It's now better here and there. And although half the people didn't really get the difference,
Mm.
it was just really great to be part of such a passionate group of people. In that case, music lovers, and that's where I really learned the pleasure to work in an environment where people that are really caring about the product they are making.
Mm.
And also, Marantz was a premium brand. I also learned there what it takes to build a premium brand in a very crowded space. I mean, music, a lot of competition from Asia as well. But to build there that lifestyle product or lifestyle brand, we went through the whole process. I learned a lot from that. So these are really things that really came back in my career later in 3T. And so after that, I went to the mobile phone division in France. I moved to first off-season or sorry, outside of the Netherlands job in Paris, 37th floor in Toul Montparnasse, overlooking the city. It was fantastic. Never had a better office than there. But I was part of a group of people that was at that time mobile phones were coming up. It
Yeah.
was Nokia. Nokia was the strong brand and growing and was world domination. Also, the future outlook was that Nokia would be the dominator. And at that time, the phones were moving to more kind of smartphones. So
Mm.
you started getting rather than just having a call, you could start playing games on it and then creating more traffic. So my job was to find software partners to put apps on the phone. You could not download them at that time; they need to be installed in the phone. But to put apps on the phone that would create additional traffic, and then we had agreed in a revenue share model with the operator. So this was moving Philips from hardware only to hardware plus starting to get a kickback on extra revenue create. So I was part of that team, and I remember that I found a software partner. They had developed an app, and with that app that could be installed on the phone, you could actually find your way to a restaurant.
Mm.
And I remember that all my colleagues said to me, "That's crazy. No one is going to look in the city at a screen and walk to find a restaurant." And that's really funny because that's what everyone is doing right now, right? But
Yeah.
this just shows what disruptive technology can do. Most people just say, no, it's not never going to happen. But, people adapt and all of a sudden it's normal. And so that was my first experience in working in a disruptive technology environment. And then we know what happened. Nokia 2 years later was out, BlackBerry was out, and
Yeah.
iPhone all of a sudden that was never in the mobile phone list of suppliers in 2001 was the market leader in 2007. So this is how quickly it can go.
Mm.
And in my last position in Philips, I was in the corporate M&A department. I was responsible for the lighting acquisitions. And Philips was one of the three dominant players in lighting at that time. So there was General Electric from the US, there was Osram from Germany, and Philips. And it was all about light bulbs. So the light
Mm.
bulb is very cheap to make, and people pay, €1 or €2. Sounds cheap, but the production costs are maybe 10 cents, so the margin is massive. And the barrier to entry is very high because you need in order to sell that product, you need a glass factory, which requires a lot of capital, and you need to run it 24 hours a day. So the barrier to entry was huge. So
Mm.
this was a very comfortable position. But with the arrival of LED, all of a sudden everyone could make a lamp. And it was about the design, about the luminaire, not about the light source anymore. So I did acquisitions for Philips to do some luminaire acquisitions to strengthen the position of Philips in the new lighting world. And yeah, today Philips lighting is still there, but it's now one of many players. And
Mm.
the financial performance is significantly different than it was about before. So that was my second experience with what disruption means
Yeah.
and how many people ignore it in the beginning. And then when it's too late, realize, oh, actually, we should have, maybe done something else. And disruption caused by startups, young team with a great idea, full speed with something new, not constrained by this is how we do things or this is what we have. Just,
Yeah.
blank sheet of paper. So that was the second time, and that is, of course, now in micromobility with investing. That's, for me, it's my third thing that micromobility is happening. A lot of people
Mm.
still may be in denial of that, but it's happening and it's happening fast. And in 10 years, that mobility world will look differently.
Yeah.
And we are now, working in how that mobility future looks like.
Yeah.
So that is all things that. So then in my last time in Philips, in my last years, I did an executive MBA, as you said, from INSEAD.
Yeah.
And that's where you put all you connect all the dots because
Mm.
there you have a time to think about your career. Right? MBA is, of course, very focused on what do you want to achieve in your
Mm.
life, career-wise. So then, of course, you start thinking about what have I achieved and what do they like, what do they not like, how do I see my future. So you actually have time, and everyone is doing that. So you're surrounded by, we were with 60 people in the class from all over the world, Americans, Germans, Chinese. I mean, really very, very international. And you speak 1.5 year, you make friends and you talk about, everyone's life journey and where they come from, where they're going. So obviously, it also creates you thinking on your own side. And
Yeah.
for me, that was really a moment to think about, okay, I had a great career in Philips. This is what I really enjoy, what I'm good at. I want to proceed my career in another direction. Um, so then I tried to set up two startups in my spare time.
Okay.
So having a job, and then my first one was about making custom baby and children clothing. So
Mm.
basically, t-shirts you could embroider your name on it. Um, But I did that part-time, which was not a good idea, and I did it also at very limited budget. It was all it was too complicated for. I mean, the plan was good, but that needed some serious resources. And I did as a graduation project for my INSEAD, I wrote a business plan about a dating app.
Mm.
And actually after that, after I graduated, I invested some money in some developers to make a dating app called Twigo.
Mm.
Twee is Dutch for two, and
Yeah.
go you go together kind of
Yeah.
thing. Um, so I started that, and then but then I got my job in M&A, and that consumed all my time, so I
Mm.
stopped that. But what I learned from that was that I enjoyed that building, that creation part. But if I want to succeed, I need to do that full time, 100% focus, and I need to do that with enough capital.
Yeah.
If I, rather than hiring the two cheap designers at a different dating app, I should have hired the best designers. It was more money. So that's why I then, after that experience, I decided to try to proceed my entrepreneurial, future by acquiring a small company
Mm.
and then try to grow it from there with my experience I had built in 12 years working in a big company.
Yeah.
And so I looked at around 100 companies. I looked at a boating company in Holland that made boats that were sold in Dubai because they were creating these islands with all these
Mm.
villas, and all these people needed a boat to go to the shore. Looked at that company. I looked at in France at a sail maker. I like sailing too, so I
Yeah.
like cycling, but I sailing too. Um, I made an offer for time bikes at that
Mm.
time. Yeah, was not high enough apparently. And then 3T. So 3T was passion, sports, passion, high end, global. It was really the thing that felt right. So
Mm.
I proceeded with acquiring 3T, the 3T brand name, with some partners. So I was the only one working the company, but I had a couple of financial partners that
Yeah.
supported me. Bought the brand, made myself totally available, resigned from Philips, moved to Italy to, set up this Italian brand.
All in,
Started alone.
all in, as it were, like you said, move to Italy. This is it.
Yeah. And and there were two moments where I had a huge doubt actually. There was on the
Mm.
first day, so I had signed this contract, was all happy, resigning Philips. And then that first day that I was not driving to the office, but I was sitting in my home at my kitchen table with my contract in front of me. I got really one day in a serious depression because I thought, what have I done? I had a great job, because that all of a sudden then your outlook looks a lot better than when you had that job. And I had a great job with salary, pension, option scheme, bonus program, my own office secretary, everything. And now I have this piece of paper. And where do I start? So that was a really difficult moment. But I thought, okay, so I had a few brands in the bike industry that I admired, and one of them was Cervelo, the other one was Zip, and they actually were producing in using a similar factory in Taiwan. So I thought I start there.
Right.
So I took the next day a plane to Taiwan, and Taiwan is for the bike industry. Taiwan is what for people in tech is Silicon
Yeah.
Valley.
Yeah.
Taiwan is a dominating place for bicycle production. So the factory started in Taiwan. When they moved to China and Vietnam, the owners of these factories in the other countries are usually Taiwanese. So Taiwan is a major player in the bike industry. So I thought I'd go there for as long as it takes, see what happens.
Mm.
And that's where I met a designer that said, "Hey, I can design bicycle parts." Oh, that's great. I'm looking for one. And when I left there, I had my first two products. I had a designer for the first product and a producer. So I felt already a lot better. I had something to start with. And then the first Eurobike, which is the biggest bicycle show in the industry, I was there with these two products. So I thought, how am I going to go up in this show where everyone has a lot of stuff and I have only those two little things, a handlebar and a seat post? So I made a booth with a huge 3T logo and the table and the two products, and
Yeah.
then myself and my first hire there. And so that's where we really learned storytelling, because we had not a lot to talk about the product itself. We had to talk a lot about the history of the brand, like treat it as iconic brands, and a lot about the vision of the brand, the idea we had, why we wanted to build 50. And that's actually what brought customers on board. Not so much the product we had at that time, but the plan, the ambition we had to restore and once iconic, brand that people loved that had disappeared, and to bring that back alive. That was when people got really excited, and that's where we started having the first customers and sending the first invoice. Very exciting moment. First Excel invoice, getting the first money paid. All these things are very exciting, and then from there we grew the company,
Yeah. I
and
mean, going back to some of those early days, like you said, you had those doubts, but you had to make a plan to go forwards. I mean, that's often where people can get stuck and almost paralyzed. What made you kind of just keep going and drive forward, and rather than say, actually, maybe the old life is a bit easier, I can do that?
what I am from nature is I'm a doer and less of a
Mm,
thinker. I like to think, analyze, but then I like the action,
mm,
and that happens to be a very important criteria of a personality that you need to build a startup,
mm.
because the list of to do is never ending. And particularly in the beginning, it's a lot about getting started and stop thinking and start acting. So my nature helped me to get started, and I had to believe that I could bring it somewhere. I had no clue yet where we're going, but I think that was very important. I think that is also, a characteristic that I actively look for in entrepreneurs right now, is are they action oriented? Because, it's important to have the right vision and strategy, 10%, but then the rest is getting it done, right?
Yeah,
That's super, super key. In any company, I think in tech, but also in the product, of course, in the product business, sorry, but also in tech.
yeah, absolutely.
So that is one thing, and the other thing was, you know, I'm also, have a certain pride, right? I thought like, okay, if I give up now what I've started, and am I really going to fly back to my old boss saying, hey, I want to come back?
The cap in
Ah,
hand.
they're not going to do that, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
So there was that short doubt, and then I got going. And then the great thing about working in a small company is that you see progress every day. You
Mm,
see things. Now all of a sudden, after 1 week, I had the designer, two products, sketched, and the producer.
yeah.
And that starts. So then you can start working on your line, on your Eurobike. How do you do that? So the great thing is that you see results really quickly,
Mm,
and that kept me going. I mean,
yeah,
that's definitely something that I like to see. That I need to see that, and then I get a lot of energy from that, saying, "Oh, we are here now. We can go there." So to make those steps
yeah,
forward all the time,
absolutely.
yeah, that is very exciting. And then I have learned, and I did not do that too much in the beginning, but it's very important. I've learned that from time to time you need to stop and look back at what you have achieved, because that ladder up is never ending. So you might also get at a certain moment frustrated that you never get there. But that's why it's very important from time to time for yourself, but also with your team, to celebrate what you have achieved. Very important. More important than I realize now than what I did at that time.
Mm.
So I should have done that more at that time, I think.
I mean,
Yeah.
startups building business is always about trade-offs as well, because like you say, the list is never ending. So you've got to prioritize, and some things you're going to have to push down the road to do at a later date. How do you manage that in those early days, or even at pivot times? Because I know obviously 3T, you went from parts to building full bikes as well. How do you reconcile between those trade-offs?
Well, what I started using was a tool called Painted Picture at a certain moment, not in the first couple of years, but after a couple of years in 3T, which is you're describing concretely how your company looks like in 3 years from now. So you say, okay, we do so much revenue, we have so many people, we just won that award, we just brought on the best talent, blah blah blah. So you do a description of your company in the future. And if you like that picture, in the end, you like that picture because it's the final product. That's the picture. The whole thing, all of a sudden, your to-do list is very simple because you just need to get there. But then it becomes a super powerful tool for your own decisions,
Mm.
but more important for your team. So your team gets very motivated because they are part. No, they don't have a job; they're part of a plan, and they visualize what that plan is. They see their role in it, and you also made the decisions don't require meetings anymore because it's very simple. Is your question or your decisions that you as a employee have to take, is that bringing the company further into that direction or not? If it's yes, then decision is yes, we go for it. So, and I've used that several times, and I'm trying to now to use it also with the companies we invest in. I find it very powerful tool
Yeah.
to make it as concrete as possible. Not a vague story, but it needs to be very like really like now I am in the future,
Mm.
back to the future, and describe a company.
Yeah.
And I learned that tool I became at a certain moment a member of an entrepreneurial organization, EO,
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
and I did an entrepreneur master program, a kind of an MBA for entrepreneurs. And that's where I learned to use that tool. And I have used it since then. Very, very powerful. Can really recommend it for everyone.
That's great for getting a team on board with your vision and the direction of travel, but at the same time, it can be limited by the people around you as well. Talk to me about some of the mistakes that you made in hiring the wrong people, and I suppose how you had to adapt and deal with those situations.
Ah, yeah, that is a very good and interesting question. I think I made a mistake that many people make a mistake when they're hiring people. Uh, is that in the beginning you hire for capabilities and experience.
Mm.
I need an accountant. Yes, been accounting here, accounting there. Yeah, it's good accountant. This is the one I need to hire. Till you realize that is, of course, as an accountant, you need to have accounting skills. That's obvious. But character and personality is so much more important, particularly for a startup or a small business. That I have completely changed my recruiting over the years. And then later on, when I was totally aware of our, let's say, our new recruiting way, to train my team
Mm.
to apply that in their recruiting because they were doing the exact same thing. Oh, I need someone in the supply chain and tick the boxes, all the experience. But you need in a small company and a small teams, you need to have people that are very committed, that are very driven, have a lot of energy, are willing to go out of the box because if you're a small company, at 3T we did the same as Philips, and Philips had 200,000 employees, and we had in the beginning, maybe after 2 years, we had 10. We
Mm.
did the same thing. Global logistic, purchasing in Asia, warehousing in 2 locations, global branding, product design, marketing, everything. So that means that people have to do a lot more than just their job, and there's a lot of gray areas in between jobs. So you need people that are saying, "I will do this," rather than saying it's your job, right? So it's that mentality is very important, and and a task or a job you can learn in a couple of months. And I've learned it's much better to invest 3 months in training someone
Mm.
with the right character, because someone with the right capability with the wrong character will never change. So I've learned that, and since then we have had a higher success rate of hiring the right people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So then the interview is not more about so what experience you have about, but what makes you tick, or why did you do that trial, or what drives you? Try to get to understand the drive of someone becomes also
Oh yeah.
key rather than their experience. And then at the end of the interview, you spend 5 minutes maybe on what concrete, of course, is still relevant. But
Yeah.
so that's what I really learned over time.
Mm.
And now again with investing, it's very similar.
Mm.
The founder or the founding team, do they have that drive and energy to make it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And
And
you talked earlier about being or being able to spot or be part of some of these transformational and disruptive trends that happen in the market, the transition from traditional phones to smartphones and traditional lights to LEDs. And you took 3T through a pivot from parts to full bike as well. Talk me through that time. Was that a trend that you were starting to see? What drove that? Because pivoting an organization, seeing something different in the future, like you say, if your painted picture was one thing, had that changed?
Yeah, that changed. So we had so after we got started, was not easy, but then suddenly we had our direction. We had also been very lucky, to be honest, that we were in 2008 sponsoring a pro tour team, and Carlos Sasser won the Tour de France with our products. I mean, yeah, you know, a lot of the part of being a successful company is also having luck, and we had
Yeah.
really luck there. So that really helped us to for strong growth in the years after. But then we built a company to I think a market leader or a global one top three in the upgrade market. So people bought a bike and then they swapped out the cockpit right away for 30. We were very, very strong in that aftermarket part. And that was because all the parts fitting on all the bikes. Our bars were fitting on a Specialized, on a Surveyor, on a Track. So that was our market. We had good time, good sales, good profitability. Everything was super rosy. And then I think in 2013, 14, Specialized came out with a beautifully, nicely integrated aero bar for the new triathlon bike. And it looked beautiful. And I thought from special point of view, it makes a lot of sense to do
Mm.
this. But for us, it's an enormous threat because all of a sudden our products don't fit on that bike anymore. And if Specialized doing it, for sure, Track and Strela will follow. So we saw that early on. So saying, okay, the parts business is not the future. So we can either go in more technical parts, and then you go to more, group set or electronic technology. There was one option. And the other one was to go into transforming 3T into a bike brand. So I called. We were at that time selling online, so I had a lot of customer data from customer that bought online. So I just randomly picked 20 of those people from all over the world, and I called them up, and they were very surprised to get me on the phone. and and I wanted to have a conversation with them about. And I asked all of them what would be a logical next area for 3T to grow, and all of them said a bike. So that's when I realized our consumers, our customers are ready if we go from parts to bike.
Mm.
They think there's a natural progression. Of course, it has to match the brand identity, which was performance, top end, etc. So that was the moment I said, okay, let's go in that direction. We have all the parts except the frame, but the brand can also support this change. And that's when Gerard Ho, my partner, came on board. He was the founder. He is the founder of Cervelo. He sold Cervelo to the Bond Group. Cervelo was always a big customer of 3T
Yeah.
for 3T. He had sold the company. He was up for a challenge. So I said, okay, let's transform this company. And that's when we launched the first frame in 2016, performance gravel frame, the Explorer, still out there. That model was far ahead of its time. And then we transitioned the company from a parts company to a bike company. So that was for me 3T 2.0
Yeah.
was and it was more complicated than starting than 3T 1.0 because now we had an organization that was with a declining business, and there was next
Mm.
to it an organization that was with a growing business, and it was not just adding a product. Going from parts to bike is a complete overhaul of your company. You go from distributors to selling to stores.
Mm.
So a lot more accounts. So your invoicing goes from one invoice a month with prepaid customer to every day 5 invoices with terms. Logistics, not a container a month, but everyday shipments. Bike assembly. Marketing is not about product picks anymore. It's about experience,
Yeah.
lifestyle and performance shots, videos. Um, So customer service was not about efficiently shipping a container. It was about helping the dealer. And when the dealer calls customer service, they immediately ask, "Oh, why? How does this bolt fit on on that product?" So you need to have actually in your customer service, you need to have a team people that can actually handle these first line questions.
Mm.
So the complete overhaul of the company and therefore also of the people I had to change over time a lot of people that in that transition. So it's a reinvention of the company,
It's
and
also,
that took around 3 years.
yeah.
2016, 2019, then 3G was really recognized as a bike brand, and that's also what the other thing what we did. By the way, was also say, okay, let's start a factory. That was the other big project we did. Like, let's move production back. That was not for supply chain for reasons of COVID, because after COVID people
Yeah.
started talking about. But I wanted to get away from this model of ordering everything a year before and pre-sailing everything to the
Mm.
dealer 1 year before. I wanted to go to a model where we had a lot more flexibility. So the factory was meant to change that. That is another disruptive change.
Mm.
Because rather than selling bikes 12 months in advance to the dealer, which of course he doesn't like, but he had to do it, now we could say, hey, you just order slots. You just say, I want 6 bikes in July, but 6 weeks before, you can tell me which 6 models, which color, which size, or which mix of models. So the massive change. So that was the other big project that we started and completed around 2020. So 29, 2020, we were all the structure was built for, was ready and was ready for strong growth. Yeah.
That's a lot of things to change. And I suppose a lot of risk to take on as well. I'm sure you questioned your convictions at different times through that process. But well, I mean, how did you? Well, what gave you that conviction? Through those doubting times, a bit like sort of at the beginning. That pivot. Obviously, you saw the declining, but building new distribution, new infrastructure, challenging the market in terms of the way it did business, like you say, a year in advance to shorter term, more flexibility, more agility, more risk in terms of actually maybe they don't want that order.
That was definitely a risky change. But doing nothing is probably even bigger risk. This is that's also, by the way, when people think about leaving a corporate to a startup, I think it's risky. But staying where you're not happy is a bigger risk. So it's a very important message, I think. Uh, but um, but yeah, that was. I mean, again, I started here with this kind of painted picture idea, this vision about. It was for me. It was clear that where we were was a dead end street. So I did not see a future there. So then I had this other direction. You know, a gravel bike, a new type of cycling. Great, we can be first, strong brand. So in 3, 4 years, I was imagining we had this factory, we had customers flying over, we toured them, and we let them meet the actual producer of the frame, and then the excitement that gives for people to actually meet the actual person that produced their bike, and the type of cycling you can do with the gravel bike. It was the perfect bike for me personally too. I on the road here in Italy, it's very dangerous. I'm not a mountain biker. This is the perfect mix of those two,
Mm.
right? From my home over the tarmac to the forest, and then a loop in the forest in nature, and then back. It's perfect. So I thought this is perfect for many people. So I saw the business opportunity. I liked the vision. I saw we could make it happen, and that kept me going all those years. Because in those years we have had very difficult moments. Because building one organization, scaling one down, growing the other one, keeping the atmosphere positive with that's hard.
Changes and so on, yeah.
Cash cash flow, definitely very, very stressed situations there. Um, with this transition also from prepaid containers to terms with dealers, etc. So it's a huge undertaking. Actually, so that we got into in the end, just when we were finishing this transition, we were in serious cash issues. So we were actually preparing for a meeting with the banks to ask them for delay of repayments. And I say this pretty casually right now, but at the time it was pretty stressful. I
Mm.
remember I was in a room with 12 lawyers preparing the documentation for the banks and feeling very lonely at that moment. Um,
Did
that we
you
had to
question?
go that route.
Going back to that moment, we sat in there with the 12 lawyers. Did you question? Did you question yourself in terms of maybe I was wrong?
No, I did not question the direction of the company. I, of course, questioned myself, why did I make my own life so difficult? I could have stayed in the, but they always came back like, no, this is what fits with me.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, yeah, these difficult moments as an entrepreneur, you have higher highs and deeper deeps,
Mm.
for sure. And that was a very deep deep. Um, that's the price to pay for, for being an entrepreneur. I think all entrepreneurs have been there. I mean, as an organization, we share these experiences, very valuable to do that, but they all have been there.
Mm.
And and um, and my other the entrepreneurs around me that I'm part of this group, they also help me to get through it, right? With if you hear stories from other how they share experience, how they went through that, so that's really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we were preparing this, and then COVID happened, and then there was a crazy moment because on one hand we had to shut down here. I mean, it started here all in Bergamo where the factory is based. So we were from one day to the other, we had to shut down. So we had 3 days to prepare the shutdown. In those 3 days, we put as many bikes as we could on the pallet, shipped them to a second warehouse we had in Denmark. So we were with the 3 people in the warehouse, including me, just throwing, boxes on pallet, binding them, calling the DHL, get them out, whatever we could ship. We could continue to ship during the closure. And we had a factory, and in the factory we were producing bicycle parts. And actually, I felt like, oh, there was real panic at the moment here.
Mm.
And so I asked I called a bit around in my group saying, hey, what is there we can do? And then I heard that the hospitals, they were missing the tubes to connect, basically split air tubes for 2 people.
Yeah.
And said, oh, well, we can make those. So the factory, we started making a few days later. In the factory, 2 people started making these tubes, and every day we brought them to the assembly line to sell to hospitals, send to hospitals. There was good feeling that in that moment of panic, we were very
Mm.
useful. But for the business side, also what happened is in Italy, the government declared in a standstill for all companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everyone got their debt frozen, and you could renegotiate with the banks a longer payment terms and additional fresh cash. And that's what exactly that little bit we needed to become successful as 3T, that extra little cash. That's what in the end saved us. We got through that. And when COVID, when we could open the doors again in May, then the bike boom started, and those were very, very good years from a business point of view. That was really, we were really shipping loads of bikes in that year
Yeah.
and years after.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about obviously having the vision, the execution, but also that little bit of luck. And it sounds like that was that moment of just a little bit of luck, just when it needed to happen.
You need to have luck in your like successful companies are because people push for it, the vision, etc. But you need to have help
Yeah,
and luck, and that's 100% clear.
absolutely.
And this time we had luck, and had other times also luck. You know,
And obviously, went on to you sold and set up fundraiser, which we'll come on to in a second. But just thinking back to those years where you were pivoting, is there anything looking back that you would have done differently based on what you learned?
um, no, I think we had I would have brought on board probably 1 or 2 key people earlier on. Uh, that could help drive that change.
Mm.
And then I meet people that have been through that can, or have worked in a bigger company and that can help with such a transition. So to bring some more experience on board, one or two people would have been something I probably would do differently.
Mm.
And the other thing is probably would have capitalized the company a little bit better. Um, so in Philips, before you made one investment, you had to make a lot of business plans and crunching the numbers. That's very one extreme. Entrepreneurs do very often a little bit too much on the other side, maybe. A little bit starting and then figuring out on the fly. That's also how you build a business, right? You have to get it real going. But yeah, the transition took 3 years, which probably was a little bit longer than I probably hoped for or so. But if you think about it, it's actually pretty fast. But if you maybe you hope for it in your head is 2 years or shorter. So that kind of that transition, you probably should have planned a bit better from a financial resources point of view
No, no,
to have it to achieve the same thing, but with a a lower risk probably.
no.
Yeah,
And obviously, it all worked out in the end because it grew sort of post-COVID. It's been boom times in the bicycle industry, and you sold the business. I mean, I want to talk about the emotional side of selling the business because this is a business you bought, you'd run for what, 16 years. You've been through as you say, the high highs, the low lows. It must have been quite an emotional divorce from what you had owned and lived and breathed for such a long time.
yeah, it is. It is because it's not a job or a company you own.
Mm.
It's your baby. It was my baby. I mean, start alone, okay, with an already famous brand name or once famous brand name, but every process in the company I had been involved defining, hired people, built where we were, took all those decisions um, alone or together with my partner. But yeah, it was my baby, and
Mm.
it was the right thing to do from an from an analytical point of view. Definitely
Yeah.
was good. But then yeah, then to step away is it took me I think it took me a year really to have peace with that.
Mm.
Uh, it was the right thing to do, but just to be really feeling it out.
No,
Like now, I'm really
emotionally, it's kind of
emotionally disconnected,
yeah.
or having that. Yes, when I changed jobs in the past was 2 days to have that emotional disconnect and a new connection. Yeah, this takes time. I think every founder has that. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a mission. You spend a lot of hours, a lot of energy, a lot of effort in building that with the team. And also, the relation with the team are not just people that you hire; these are part of your family
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
This is not just colleagues.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that takes time. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, definitely.
Is that why you decided not to go and run another business or build another business? Well, I suppose you are building a business with Fundraiser, but you're you're the money man essentially. You're the investor rather than the entrepreneur or the hands-on operator as you were. Is that why you went that route?
We are very hands-on investors because the three of us we have built companies and now we are investors. So we are not a typical investor that is putting money and then take hands off. We are very actively using our network we have built to help companies succeed. So I feel like I'm working with several entrepreneurs at the same time, but in a supporting role.
Mm,
The reason why I did this is for several. One is that I see I see a real investment opportunity for my mobility. This mobility is changing, and that's a huge investment return opportunity. So that's one reason. The second thing is that I would be very proud to help create more livable cities by transforming car mobility to my mobility. Everywhere where that happens, people are just happier to live there. So this is actually on the happiness index is scoring very high. So making return, creating better environments. And the thirdly is, as all the three of us, when we built our companies, we had help on the way up.
mm,
There's no way you do that without people, in certain moments saying, give you the benefit of the doubt, give you the chance, give you the help, give
mm.
whatever. So we also feel that we can give this way, we can give back to entrepreneurs to succeed. So to help them to succeed, because we had that help too, and now it's our turn to help them. So, and then from a, let's say, from a career perspective, I don't like to do the same things all the time. I like to learn new things and challenge myself and explore new territory. And this fund, there is in the bicycle industry or marketability, there is no real fund focusing on this
Mm.
sector. So to bring venture capital, professional venture capital to the industry is a great thing for the industry, I think. Um, yeah, for me, it combines what I enjoyed in Philips, business development, M&A, these kind of things, deal driven, uh, with my experience that I built in the bike industry. It's a very nice thing that comes together.
Mm.
And so it was a very logical step. I mean, if I would have started another company, it would have been like I did 3T and then I did also something else, but it's
Yeah,
the same thing again. Now it really feels like, yeah,
progress.
do that in a different way and can be more impactful because we are supporting more companies. So hopefully we create 10 successful companies.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
We'll come on to trends that you're spotting in the market and where you see things going, because you've obviously got a background of picking some of the or spotting some of them. But before we do that, has there been a tension point? Obviously, you and your other co-founders have run businesses. You've been the entrepreneurs, you've been the CEOs, you sat in that seat. What guardrails do you put in place to make sure that you don't almost step on the toes of the entrepreneurs and you can support and advise and help them, but not almost want to do it for them?
Um, all we make it very clear from the beginning is in the beginning a discussion with founders that we say, we are not going to come and work in your company. We're going to help you do your job. So make that very clear from the beginning for ourselves, but also for the entrepreneurs. And some are a little bit worried about that. They think, oh, three, executive step in, take over. But we really, none of us want to do that.
Mm,
None of the three of us want to do that role. But we want to help them. So, and then, you create trust by, working together. So when we work together, then they see that, yeah, maybe sometimes we can be a bit more directive in, hey, try this or do that or whatever. But that's really very rare we do that. And
yeah.
usually we just explain. It helped me to be part of EO. That's where EO is all about sharing experience and not teaching
Mm,
people. That's very
yeah.
important that they train you in the beginning that you don't teach, but you share
Mm,
experience. So I try to apply it here too.
yeah.
So I don't say to a founder saying, "Oh, you should do this." I say, "When I had a case like
Yeah.
this, and this is what I did. Up to you to do whatever you want." But
Yeah.
so yeah, I think what works well is that we connect very well with the entrepreneurs because they feel like they talk to, of course, people from the industry. That helps because we understand things very quick, their challenges, but also from, there's a lot of practical things in life of an entrepreneur that if you're a pure investor with an MBA and no real life experience in a company, you don't realize. And we understand that. It doesn't mean that we are that that we are not strict on timelines, for example, but we understand the challenges of making those
Yeah.
probably much better. So I think with the companies we're investing in right now, it works really well. And
Yeah.
sometimes we don't, they are on their own for a few weeks, and sometimes we talk daily because depending on what support they need.
Yeah. And how do you think about capital efficiency, in terms of burn rate versus growth and new customers? Because there's always particularly at early stage businesses, there's a tension point between burn rate and profitability. How do you think about that?
The first thing is that in this industry, this is not a tech industry where you can raise money for 10 years. It's a
Mm,
very important thing to realize. The companies that have tried that are not there anymore. Van Moof, Cake, it is just it is hardware software business. That is not a way to build your business. So we are when we invest in a company, they need money, so they are loss making from a P&L point of view. Is the first step is to bring them very quick to at least cash flow neutrality.
Mm.
Because from that point of view, it is much easier to get investors on board because you don't need to tell investors, I'm going to use your money to burn cash. I'm going to use your money to expand in the US or to, you know, expand there.
Yeah.
That's a much better conversation to have. So it is better to be a bit smaller and cash burn neutral and
Mm.
then raise money than having this story of 5 years raising money because we're burning it through all the time. So we are very focused on that. So we are very focused on when a company has a product to try to go to market in the best possible way as quick as possible and to drive your revenues. And then you can continue to invest. We don't want to we don't necessarily need to build a company into profitability in a year time, but we try to stop the burning of cash as
Yeah.
quickly as possible by growth, not by
Yeah.
cutting costs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then from that position, you are in a strong position to raise capital because that's the other thing. You need to be able to time it right. If you need money in March and you don't get a March, you're bankrupt in April. It's a really bad position to be in. If you're cash neutral and you can have March or you can have it in July and you're still there, that puts you in a much stronger position.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's all about building that position to allow you to survive first and strive later on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's been the one thing that surprised you since founding Fundraiser that you didn't expect?
The number of startups in this space. I mean, I've been in this industry and I have, of course, seen startups, but I have seen since I started, and I started seriously January 24, so a year and a few months, I have looked at more than 700 companies in the meantime. Or we have looked at 700 companies, so because we do look North America and Europe.
Yeah.
And of course, many of those we put aside because it doesn't fit or whatever, but these are all in my capability. So there's a huge number of startups, a lot in Europe, North America, but also in Korea, Japan, Malaysia, Hong Kong, I mean, all over the world. And secondly, is that I remember when I took over 3T, I was coming from outside the industry in the bike industry. It was a pretty very incestuous industry actually.
Mm.
So that was perceived as very strange. Right now, these startups, people from BMW, Porsche, Tesla, Google, Microsoft, so from all over the place, advertising agencies, so from different backgrounds, people are now, seeing opportunities to build a business, and I think that is very good for the industry. More creative ideas, more software applications, software solutions coming to market, automotive solutions coming to the bike industry to increase safety. So it becomes a real serious, bigger professional industry
Mm.
for for an mobility alternative to cars.
Yeah.
So it goes away from the enthusiast biker to a mobility market
Yeah.
with a lot of fresh ideas. And that's I'm surprised. I'm very happy about it at the same
Mm.
time.
Yeah.
Um, so that is fascinating. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Really good. It brings us nicely on to the trends that you're seeing. What are the trends that you're seeing in the market? What's making a company investable in? Yeah.
How to make company investable? It starts really with the team. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure you hear that very often, but we need to find that in the eyes of the founder or the founding team, this willingness to go for a mission rather than having a job. Of course, in combination with a product or a solution that we think has a chance, right? These two things are
Yeah.
crucial. But we focus within micromobility. I mean, this is also very wide. Micromobility includes drones and goes very far. But we focus on safety technology. So if you ask people that drive by car, why do you not go buy another vehicle? Use another vehicle rather than the car. And then the number one reason is lack of feeling
Mm.
unsafe, and a lot of it is infrastructure.
Mm.
If you ask people in Milan about this versus Denmark, then in Denmark that scores safety is lower of an issue, but in Milan is a higher of an issue because of the infrastructure. But we can change the infrastructure, but that's where governments are working on, and they are working on that. but there are a lot of technologies that can enhance the safety of a rider. So, and this is technology that I think is coming from the automotive industry, is coming now to the e-bike and two-wheeler industry. So even beyond e-bike, also motorcycles and mopeds, but in a different form factor. So dedicated
Mm.
design for
Yeah.
low power consumption, small space, lightweight. So we are investing in that. We have invested in several companies in that space already. ABS, AI video technology for a warning system for
Mm.
behind and front, and something less tech maybe, but also very impactful is a foldable helmet company. So actually you can, use a helmet, put it in your backpack rather than
Mm.
having to carry around the thing all the time.
Yeah.
So that's safety. Then the second one is urban mobility. So cars are getting bigger and heavier. Urban areas are getting bigger. It just doesn't fit. There is no space for bigger, heavier, more cars.
Mm.
So they need to get out of the city, and something else needs to be replaced. So speed pedelec scooters, e-bikes. That is the way people will move around in urban areas. Paris is a good example, but it's now happening everywhere. So we invest in new ideas there, technologies, or even vehicles.
Mm.
And the third category is sport technology. We are coming from the performance side of biking, Zip, Cervelo 3T. But we see now certain technologies appearing that can be introduced to the market through professional cyclists, creating visibility, and then from there trickle that down back to commuting level. So then back
Mm.
to the real purpose of the fund is to create better urban living environments. Um, so that's the third category we are investing in. We have not done an investment yet, but we have right now several projects, due diligence
Mm.
running in that space. So those are the three categories where we see the biggest opportunities from a financial return point of view, but therefore also from an impact point of view.
Mm. Absolutely. Very good. Very good. Well, René, this has been such a enjoyable, fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time. Obviously, I'm very excited to see Fundraiser and what you're doing, investing in the market. Obviously, we've both been part of the micromobility space for some time. And you'll be speaking at Eurobike, running a couple of sessions. Tell me a little bit about that. That's going to be later this month.
Yeah, we will run. We will be present at two events, so we're very excited about it. So Eurobike is organizing Leadership Night. That's the evening before the Eurobike starts, where all the C-level executives of the industry are gathering. So this time they have asked for, let's say, speakers more from an financial, from an investment strategic point of view to speak. So one of them is Baird. Baird, it's an M&A advisory
Yep.
firm, so they have done transactions like Victoria and Canyon. So professional M&A advisor for the cycling industry and other industry. There will be OCC strategy consultants. So these are looking at the trends in the industry. Private equity from Asia. So to
Mm.
have a perspective from private equity and from Asia is
Mm.
interesting. And I will be talking about the technology trends from a venture capital point of view. So this is the first time that there is a whole evening or a 1 hour dedicated for not talking necessarily about the bikes or the product, but about the more from a strategic and financial point of view. So I think that is very encouraging. And hopefully we're able to open the eyes of the audience about what's coming and what the opportunities are, because the opportunities are there.
Mm.
We just have to, I think, in the bike industry, we have to redefine from we are in the bike industry, we are in the mobility industry, and all of a sudden the opportunities are there. So that's what we hope to make clear. And then, so that's one on the Tuesday night, and then we organize another kind of a workshop where we talk as a fund. So it will be Energy Rara, myself, and Bert again. We talk about how to set yourself apart as a startup, how to hire the right talent, how important go-to-market is, and what it takes to prepare for an exit. So we cover the fundamental things for a successful start of a company, raise money, grow the company, and sell it again. So we cover that in 4 different short presentations, where we also invite some of our portfolio companies to, to give some story some experience from their point of view working with us, so they can, startups and investors get a bit of an idea about, how we work with them,
Yeah,
uh, and why that is important and what our role is, etc.
fantastic.
So very excited about that, and we've also participated in a few panels throughout the Eurobike show. So it's going to be full on Eurobike this year, yeah, for all of us. Not as an exhibitor, but as a participant in
Yeah.
many side events. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you there as well, and yeah, hopefully, it'll be a great event for fundraising. I'm excited to see the new technologies and so on that come into the micromobility industry as well. So, but René, again, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you in person.
Yeah, thanks for the occasion to have a chat with you. It was a pleasure, and look forward to see you in a few weeks.
Perfect. Thank you.